Let's look at another equilibrium example. The equilibrium constant for the given reaction is 0.561 at 800 Kelvin. If the initial concentration of HI is 0.500 molar, what are the equilibrium concentrations of each species? Now, this is an equilibrium problem. The first thing we need to do is set up an ICE table. So we have I for initial, C for change, E for equilibrium. We're told we have an initial concentration of HI equal to 0.500 molar. And since it doesn't mention anything about initial concentrations of I2 and H2, we're going to assume they're 0. Now this problem is a little bit different because here we're starting with product or something on the right side of the equation rather than the left side. It really doesn't matter what we start with because it's an equilibrium reaction. The process is actually going in both directions. For our change row, we still have to do it in terms of X. We'll still be gaining H2, so plus X, and gaining I2, so plus X there as well. On the HI, we'll be losing HI, but we have to put minus 2X because if we look at the coefficients in our balanced chemical equation, we see that we have a coefficient of 2 in front of the HI. Our equilibrium row is simply the sum of the initial and change rows, so we have X, X, and 0.500 minus 2X. Now we can set up our law of mass action, so K equals the concentration of HI. Remember, we have to square that because we have a coefficient of 2 over the concentration of H2 and the concentration of I2. Now, because all of these are in pressures, we could have done this as a Kp or Kc. However, the values were given in terms of molarity, and our K is given in terms of concentration. So we want to make sure we do this in terms of molarity. Now I can substitute in what I know. I have 0.561 equals my HI concentration at equilibrium, which is 0.500 minus 2X, and I need to square that. And on the bottom, I have X and X, so I'm going to write that as X squared. Now, this might be the point at which you're saying, where can I make that simplifying assumption? And, oh, I can't make the simplifying assumption because of the value of K. However, there is a solution that makes this problem a little bit easier. Notice that on the fraction, we have both of our terms squared. That means I can take the square root of both sides. This will greatly simplify the calculation I need to do. When I take the square root of 0.561, I get 0.749. And what that leaves me with on the right side is 0.500 minus 2x divided by x, because I took the square root of everything. Now I can rearrange and simplify my expression a little bit, combine some terms, and then I can solve for x and find that x equals 0.182. Now I can use that information to figure out what my equilibrium concentrations are. For H2 and I2, my equilibrium concentrations will be just that, 0.182 molar. For HI, I'll have to do a little bit of a calculation. I have to do 0.500 minus 2x, and I end up with 0.464 molar for my HI concentration. So on those problems where you can't make the simplifying assumption, always look to see if there's a mathematical solution which will make the problem a little bit easier.